Abhinav Siwach, our Vice Chairperson Dr. S.S. Chaudhary and Mr. Brishpal Singh Charan, who is the Senior Civil Judge in Rajasthan, Officer 2015 batch. Please give them a warm welcome. Big round of applause, guys. Please be comfortable. Please. A very good afternoon to all of you. Hope you all are doing good. Abhinav, I am feeling really honored to welcome you. It's a great pleasure to have you here with us. Abhinav is an IIM graduate, refused rupees 30 lakh job offer and top 2022 with All India rank 12. So give him a big round of applause, please. Heartiest congratulations, Abhinav. And I would like to welcome Mr. Brishpal Singh Charan, who is the Senior Civil Judge in Rajasthan, Officer of 2015 batch and Additional Chief Judicial Magistrate. I welcome you all. Heartiest congratulations to you, Abhinav. Now, I would like to request our Vice Chairperson, Dr. S.S. Chaudhary, sir, to present a shield to our 12th rank topper, Abhinav Siwach, to honor him. Sir, please. Give them a big round of applause, please. Thank you so much to our Vice Chairperson, sir, and Abhinav. Now, without delaying further, I will request Abhinav to come and guide our students about answer writing skills and share strategies about how to crack IAS. Abhinav, please.
Good afternoon, everyone. So how's the Josh? How's the Josh? How's the Josh? Great. So, as ma'am has introduced me, I have secured All India rank 12 in this year's Civil Services Examination 2022, and I am here to share some strategy, share some advices, suggestions, recommendations for you all. For this exam, there is no single strategy. Every individual has a different strategy, different approach for the examination. And so there's no one single strategy, all of you are different. The exam is such that every individual with a different approach can also crack it. So I'll share what I followed across the 3 stages, which is prelims, mains and interview. And I want the session to be as interactive as possible, so feel free to ask any doubts, queries, any questions, whatever you feel like during the interaction. Feel free to stop me at any point if you have any queries or any doubts. So, how many of you would be appearing for the next exam, Civil Services Examination 24? So, almost all of you would be appearing. Has anyone appeared for this prelims? It was too difficult to appear. Okay, so have you cleared this prelims? The other guy? Okay. And I'm assuming this would be a first attempt for those who are appearing for the next year exam? Yes. Great. I'll first start with the prelim strategy, the approach I followed for prelims, and then we'll focus on mains and interview. Have you guys seen this year prelims paper? Yes. How did you find the paper? It was difficult. It was, I think, one of the most difficult papers. So it was a very difficult paper, and prelims for me is based on 3 things. One is knowledge, the other is practice, and the third is your aptitude or your logical reasoning. So even for the general studies prelims paper, it is not only that we have to use aptitude in the CSAT paper, GS paper also asks for aptitude. So I'll first start with the knowledge part. Yeah. So for knowledge, then your practice, and then your logic. So I believe prelims depends on these three things. So first we'll start with the knowledge part. As you know, we have static part and we have our current part. So in static part, I'm sure all of you must be aware of the subjects that we have. So one by one, tell me what all subjects do we have here? Yeah, history. History then? Yeah. Great. Polity. Economics. Art and culture. Then science and tech. Environment and ecology. So yeah, fair enough. And current affairs. So polity and international relations I'll put here only, and current affairs or miscellaneous topics. Fair enough. So if you look at this year's exam and if you look at the trend of prelims in the past 3-4 years, you'll find that this is the trend. This changes each year. You'll find that history has around 9% or 9 questions, art and culture around 4% questions, geography I think 17 questions or 16-17 questions, polity IR would also be 17-18 questions, economics again around 15 questions. Environment ecology is also a very important topic. This would also have around 16-17 questions. Science and tech and current affairs, 58 and 17, 75. So maybe 10 here and 15. So this is the broad composition. This changes. I may be wrong here and there. So this is general composition. Now if you see, there are certain topics here which become very important, and these are environment ecology, your polity and IR, geography, and your economics. Others are also very important, but they have substantial weightage, and so it becomes very important to focus on these topics. So we'll start with the subjects, the source. Do you guys have, I think you would have a fair idea of the sources we have for each of the subjects. Do we have a fair idea? Okay, you'll tell me what all are the sources for this. So polity, what is it? Yeah, Lakshmikant. For prelims, this is for prelims perspective. Anything else apart from Lakshmikant? Okay, yeah. For history, okay, spectrum. Spectrum was what I followed for modern history. And NCRTs also you can follow here. NCRTs. For art and culture, yeah, and also you can follow the NCRTs. Here I would suggest that NCRTs become very important for this topic. Generally 2-3 questions come, and NCRTs have a lot of significance in these topics. So NCRTs become very important here. Then for environment and ecology, yeah, so that is the also some NCRTs are also there apart from that, which are important. Economics, okay. And plus you can refer to NCRTs also here. Now the thing with economics is that you need to be very clear with respect to your concepts, and once you are clear with your concepts, you will be able to solve the questions. And so NCRTs are the primary source here which will help you clear the concepts. So, and these are introduction to macroeconomics, and so understanding about GDP, planning, budget, different types of deficit, monetary policy, etc. So international relations. So this is mostly contemporary or current part. So this can be done through either newspapers, or this can be done through any current affairs composition. In science and tech, what do you guys think about science and tech? What is the standard source? Yeah, NCRT plus this is also dynamic. So for this also newspaper would help, and the Hindu has a dedicated page for science and tech. If you would be reading the Hindu, you would know that on Sunday there is a special page for science and tech which comes. So that becomes fairly important for science and tech. So this was the current part. Now if we look at this was the static part. If we look at the current part also, polity can be supplemented, the current part can be supplemented with newspapers, or any current affairs compilation that you would be getting from here or anywhere, any current affairs compilation. Now for environment and ecology also, this is the best source, and most of the questions here are also from the contemporary part. Same for economics, newspapers, plus your budget of that year, and so for economics, like we've seen the budget which was released by the Honorable Finance Minister. So for the current part, you can refer to the budget for the year, say 2023-24. In next year it would be the budget for the year 2024-25. Sorry, 2023-24, an economic survey for the preceding year. IR mostly newspapers, and science and tech also mostly newspapers would work here. So any doubts still here? This was the knowledge part, that these are the sources from where you can read about the knowledge part. You can build on the knowledge base, you can build on your content. These are fairly standard sources, and I'm sure everyone would know about this, because there's a lot of guidance and there's a lot of content. Many toppers have shared the sources on their blogs, etc. So this would be fairly known to everyone. So any doubts anyone has till here? All right. So we've discussed, like I was saying, prelims is knowledge, then your practice, and then your logic. So now we'll look at this part. What do you understand by practice with respect to prelims? Louder. Yeah. So this involves solving MCQs. So prelims is one such thing that if you do not solve MCQs, you may not be able to clear the prelims or get an edge in prelims. So MCQs become very important, and for MCQs, the Bible for MCQs is previous year questions. So what you should do is that you should go through compilations of previous year questions topic wise. Say if you are studying economics and you've read monetary policy or you've read fiscal policy, then you should look at the previous year questions, whatever questions have been asked, and you'd find that there are questions from the same theme which are coming again and again. So there'd be questions like what are the options used by RBI to increase money supply or to reduce money supply, and the options would be increasing repo rate, decreasing repo rate, increasing SLR, reducing SLR. So PYQs are your guide, because if you thoroughly look at the PYQs, you would find that there is some consistency in the questions which are asked from PYQs. You'd see that there is some repetition of questions also which happens. So here also questions and themes. You'd see that certain themes have questions year on year. Questions are there from those themes year on year. So it will help this way. The second is that now what do you understand by options? Any question would have 4 options. One of them would be correct, the other 3 would be wrong. Now what is happening, what people are saying recently is that from the options, a question is made in the next year or in the subsequent years. So there is a question, there are options. Suppose C is the correct option. Now B has some concept, B has something. What would happen is that on the concept which is there in option B, a question may be made in the next year. So this is also happening. So when you go through the PYQs, you look at the questions and themes. Also at the same time, you should look at the options, and you should study the options as well, because the options may become questions in the next year or in the subsequent years. One is PYQs and the other is test series. You can do test series and you can solve as many PYQs, do as many MCQs as possible. Now any doubts anyone has till now? Great. Now we'll talk about this thing. Now this is a very important part other than these 2 things. I'm sure you would have solved MCQs of prelims till now. Some MCQs you would have solved. Now I am writing a word over here. Have you heard about this term? Huh? You would have heard about this. You would have seen many YouTube videos which tell you that using this word you can increase your marks by 25-30 marks. You would have seen some reels also on this word. This word has become quite important, and it is actually quite important. But now UPSC is also framing such kind of options, if you see in this year's paper, where this word is existing, but the techniques have changed. You cannot use the simple elimination techniques. Like simple elimination techniques for what? If there's an extreme statement, if all is there, none is there, you may cross them. Some is there, it can be true. If any data is there, say it is said that India's rank at GDP at PPP is 5th or 6th, or for that matter 1st. Now any data is there, it may be wrong. Any organization like World Food Program, is by which organization, so they may give a wrong organization. So these were the normal elimination techniques which people used to tell about. So now things are changing a bit, and now some of them are relevant still, while some of them have lost their relevance. So for this also you need to ensure that you have presence of mind during those 2 hours, and for you to have presence of mind during those 2 hours and to use this word, you need to do a lot of this. What is this P? Practice. So in exam like setting, in those 2 hours, in the mocks that you are doing, you need to ensure that you are writing the exam just like you are writing the mock, just like you are writing actual exam. It would enable that you apply your logic and you are able to use elimination techniques then. And this is a gradual process. Once you do practice, once you solve MCQs, PYQs, you will be able to use this word and you will be able to improve your score subsequently. So we've discussed about prelims fairly. I think we've talked about the sources, we've talked about the strategy, we've talked about practice, we've talked about what all is required. So any doubt anyone has till now regarding prelims? All right. So we'll talk about mains now. What are these 4 GS? Huh? Louder, louder. So mains, as you all know, has 4 GS papers, 2 papers of optional, English, Hindi, essay. We'll first talk about general studies. Now when we talk about general studies, the first thing, and this holds true for prelims also, you should memorize the syllabus for both prelims and for mains as well. Prelims also syllabus was important, here it becomes even more important. So do we have a rough idea of what all is there in each of these papers? Okay, we'll start with general studies 1. So what all is there in general studies? Art and culture, history. This is both India and world history. Geography, again India and world. Indian society. What else? Yeah, I think what are the sources for this? So for art and culture, NCERT is there, and NCERT is a pictorial representation also. So if you look at NCERTs, you'll see these sculptures, you'll see the caves, and you'll have a more better idea because this is more descriptive in nature. Plus there is this book again by Nitin Singhania sir. This is also quite useful. For Indian history, Spectrum was what I followed, and for world history, I basically relied on Google for this. There is not much weightage to world history, so you can rely on Google for this. For geography, what are the sources? NCERT and yeah. GC Leong. And for society, have you attended any classes of GS1 till now? So what are the sources for society? Yeah, you can follow that also, but yeah, if someone is following that, they can follow Ram Ahuja. Otherwise, There is a NCRT Indian Society that can also be followed. And what I used to follow was I used to Google and I used to make short notes of this. So this is what I did. Now, just like we were able to look at the different components for prelims, for mains, I believe it is knowledge, practice, and your presence of mind during the examination, during those 3 hours. We are talking about the knowledge part and we'll continue with this. So for GS2, what all comes here? Yeah. Social justice, international relations, what else? Anything else? I've also not studied this after I gave my main, so I may forget. So you may add if there's anything here. Fine. So for this thing, for mains, Lakshmikant is not sufficient. You need to augment this with newspapers, the news, current affairs, the different committee reports. So you would have, like there are different committee reports, Sarkaria committee report, second ARC, etc. I had gone through the reports, but there are summaries available of these committee reports, so one can go through the summary for augmenting polity with respect to mains. And I think governance also I was not using any different source, I was using the same sources for governance also. Now for social justice, there is EPG Pathshala. Have you heard about this? So it has a master's level courses, so you can refer to that. So you can type in the keyword, say poverty, hunger, and then you can Google it on EPG Pathshala. For instance, poverty, hunger, etc. And I relied on this most of the times for social justice. For IR, for me, if you see the paper for IR, I mean paper for GS2, you'd find that IR is mostly, there are 4 questions, 2 10 markers and 2 15 markers. Most of them, 2 questions or 3 questions would be current based. So for this, newspapers or any current affairs compilation would be more than enough for you to write good answers. Also, there is another source here which is Ministry of External Affairs. So this is official site of Ministry of External Affairs, and you can browse through the site and you can build your short notes or notes from the Ministry of External Affairs site. So you'd be able to see very beautiful content which would be, say, India's bilateral relations with neighbors, with Australia, with US, with Canada, etc. And you'll be able to develop good content from here. And this you can further, like for the IR part, you can divide this into say economic relations or strategic relations, geopolitical significance, etc. So any doubt with respect to GS1, GS2? Great. Now GS3. GS3 has what all? Sorry? Economics, science and tech, disaster management, internal security. What else? environment and ecology. Anything else? Great. So a basic theme for all these subjects is newspapers would be of good help. Newspapers or any current affairs compilation. And so we'll start with economics. What I use NCRTs here. I was not having any other source because I did an MBA from IIM Calcutta and I was fairly good. I had a fairly good understanding of economics. So I did not require any other source apart from NCRTs, but people do refer to other sources as well. So it is your choice and convenience. If you wish to, if you are comfortable with NCRTs, you may study NCRTs, but if you want to diversify, you may very well do that. Now economics has again different components: monetary policy, fiscal policy, economic development and other parts. So it can be covered fairly from NCRTs and also from the PYQs which come. With respect to science and tech, what are the sources? Mostly newspapers, because this is a fairly evolving subject. New developments, new innovations. In the past 2-3 years, we've seen during COVID, there was vaccine development, different types of vaccines were there, and this year I think there was a question on the same theme. So this is not current, but this is a contemporary subject. And so this can be done fairly from here. For disaster management, what I used to follow was I used to refer to NDMA guidelines. NDMA guidelines for various disasters, say earthquake, flood, cyclone, etc. So NDMA guidelines dwell upon what can be done before a disaster, during a disaster and after a disaster. And so I used to refer to only NDMA website and the guidelines for disaster management. For internal security, what do you think could be a good source for internal security? Firstly, we should, for any subject, this is a general thing. For any subject, we should look at the subtopics in that subject. We should have a micro listing of syllabus. So if you look at each of these topics, you will surely have different subtopics. So like for internal security, we have border management, we have cyber security, we have Naxalism, left-wing extremism, etc., etc. So these are the different subtopics. So a general approach would be, so if you are studying, say, internal security, you should look at the different subtopics and then try to see what would be the appropriate material for them. Herein, I used to rely on newspaper plus Google. So I had made my notes through Google, and you should also refer to the PYQs for all the GS papers. And if you look at the PYQs also, you will get a sense of what UPSC is asking, what questions are coming, and accordingly you can tailor your notes. For environment and ecology, what do you, so there is this book which you already mentioned, and apart from this you can supplement this with newspapers or with current affairs compilation. And like science and tech, this is also a fairly contemporary subject, so newspapers would suffice here. Any doubt anyone has? Newspaper, current affairs. Any other doubt anyone has? All right. GS4 में क्या क्या है सब टॉपिक्स? हाँ, उसके अलावा? She is saying something. ठीक है. So yeah, ethics, integrity, aptitude is the name of the paper, GS4 paper. इसमें दो तरह के, what I feel is you have theoretical part and then you have case studies. So for theoretical part, what I used to do was that there are different keywords we have. Values, say we have different values here. Say compassion, empathy, tolerance, integrity, etc. What one needs to do here is that one should understand these keywords, the theoretical part, very thoroughly, and one should have short notes composed of the definition of, say, the values, the different keywords, along with examples. Now, definition would be fairly similar for all of you, but the examples, definition of this, everyone would be able to have some definition, and this would be, say, fairly similar for all of you. But the examples you have, this is what would be different, and this is what would bring some innovation or some novelty to your answers. So for this, you need to follow newspapers, you need to follow the current development, socio-political, economic developments, and see if there's any new instance of any civil servant who's demonstrated any of these values, or anything in society which has happened where any of these values is relevant. So herein you need to do this. For the case study part, do you have some idea of what generally comes in case study in GS4? Anyone? He wants to say something. कुछ तो बोल दो. ठीक है. So you have a case study. I mean, there will be a case study that you are appointed as the superintendent of police of a border district. This is happening. There is some infiltration which has happened. Now they'll put a ethical dilemma, or they'll give you an ethical question, and they'll ask you what are the options available, what is the course of action you take, why, justify. So this is what comes in case study. Now here the approach for case study is that first you should go through the PYQs. Then you should form a structure for your answer. Now this would consist of first an introduction, that the introduction would have a general introduction of the case study. For instance, that the case study is about a superintendent of police who's facing ethical dilemmas with respect to this. Then you should tell about the stakeholders. Who are the different stakeholders? Here some people pictorially depict the stakeholders, some people just write the stakeholders like the superintendent of police, then citizens, then XYZ. So stakeholders. Then you should come to the moot question, which is the question whatever has been asked, like what would be the options available, what would be the course of action, and why. What would be the course of action and why would you take that course of action? Now it is this part where you'll have to demonstrate that if we take this course of action, these values would be upheld. So it is in the why part where your understanding of ethics would be tested and it will reflect better. Now here what people do is that if you have any anecdote or if you have any contemporary example, like there was a question that there was illegal mining and a deputy superintendent of police tried to stop it. So there was a question on these lines, and this thing had happened in Haryana. There was a deputy superintendent of police, late Shri Surendra ji. He had been overrun by a driver while he was performing his duty. So if you have any such current example to add, you can add here in the introduction. Any such current example, any data or fact, any anecdote, you can add here. Like if there is any case study pertaining to tribals or pertaining to displacement, you can say that 47% people who are displaced are tribals. So this is just data. So you can use any such data, any such thing here. So this is a very brief, crisp idea of all the 4 papers of general studies. Any doubt here anyone has? All right. So for mains we said it is knowledge. We've seen what all can be done to supplement this. Then this is practice. Now, what do you understand by practice here? Mocks or writing papers, answer writing. आंसर राइटिंग. अभी मेरी राइटिंग देख के आपको लगता होगा क्या ही राइटिंग है, कैसे नंबर आ गए, बट ऐसी ही राइटिंग है. मुझे भी नहीं लगता था इतने नंबर आएंगे, बट आ गए इस राइटिंग के साथ. तो when we talk about answer writing, you should do answer writing on a daily basis. Say if you are studying anything, you have studied geography, and geography you've studied earthquakes, volcanoes, cyclones, etc. And you see a question, there's some question, for instance, say what has been the impact of recent volcanic eruptions in Europe or anywhere. So you should do answer writing. And for answer writing, first thing is your demand of the question. You should understand demand of the question. How many of you have seen previous year's mains question papers? Fair enough. So anyone remembers any question? Sorry, role of
India in formation for Bangladesh.
Yeah, role of India in formation of Bangladesh. So now this question, the demand of this question is role of India in formation of Bangladesh. Now people may start writing about that. So you don't need to write unnecessary stuff. You should start with an introduction that Bangladesh was formed in this year after as a result of this. Then you should directly come to the body. And now body would have this thing, that the role of India in formation of Bangladesh was this. So you'd write as many points as you want to, as you know, and then you should have a conclusion wherein you're able to summarize your answer, or you're able to give a way forward. So understanding the demand of the question in answer writing becomes very important. And the second, this thing is the structure. Understanding demand, that the question wants me to answer this, and then structuring becomes quite important, as the question wants me to answer it like this. How do I structure the answer? This question didn't have any pros and cons, but if there is a question which has pro and con, like say, has the impact of caste receded in the Indian society? So therein you can give a balanced answer that yes, it has receded, however it is still significant, points in both the pros and cons, and then you can conclude. So structuring becomes quite important. And the third part is your content. Now this is a very important part of your answer. People have started using different modes of representations for their answers. People use diagrams, they use flow charts, like say if there is increase in literacy levels, this would lead to increase in employability, This would lead to uh, increase in consumption in the economy. This would lead to increase in GDP growth rate. This may lead to increase in overall social parameters, social capabilities. So people use these kind of flow charts also so as to have a better representation of their answer, and so also to communicate their answers to the examiner in a better way. How many of you have seen Godfather movie? उसमें बोलते नहीं कि I'll give you an offer you cannot refuse. I'll give you an offer you cannot refuse. So herein you have to give something to the examiner where he cannot refuse marks. So you have to frame your answer in such a way where you get good marks. So I think understanding demand, structuring and content, yes, and for content value addition can be done through data or statistics. Data statistics can be used. You can use data, statistics comes in newspapers or is published by the government or available on PIB and other sources. And yeah, I think value addition also, people do use some thinkers also over here, some prominent people, like if there's a question on elections, people may quote S.Y. Qureshi. Mr. S.Y. Qureshi, that former Chief Election Commissioner, suggests that the other two election commissioners should have a security of tenure. So people do use this also so as to add more credibility and value to their answers. So I think this is this fairly covers the answer writing. One thing which is very important and required here is that you should write as many answers as possible, because once you start writing answer, it is an iterative process. Once you write an answer, once you show it to your mentor, your teacher, or to your friend, or to yourself only, you will understand that I could have written this, I could have written that, I could have removed this part, okay, this is not required. So it is an iterative process. The more you do of this, the more better answers you will be able to write. So I think we've talked about GS, we've talked about answer writing, and yes, I was talking about presence of mind also. Presence of mind would also come from answer writing, because once you start writing answers, once you start giving mocks, in mocks also you will find questions which you would not have studied otherwise. So if you start writing practice, you will be able to answer those questions where you would not have that much knowledge or content as compared to other questions. So presence of mind would come with answer writing practice and with broadening or expanding your study, your topics or whatever you study, your sources. So I think I fairly covered this thing. Any doubt anyone has till now?
Sir, there are 20 questions. Is there every year is the mains examination of GS first, second, third, fourth. Sir, how can the maximum number can get to achieve that and the qualify of the examination for the mains? Sir, how can? Sir, GS first, second, third, fourth. Sir, they are difficult of that. GS third. There are many of the aspirants of UPSC. There are less mark of the GS third. So how can they achieve? How can achieve that, and how can the practices that they achieve of the goals and the crack of UPSC?
So there are, I think, two things to this. The first is that one should be able to complete the paper. One should complete the paper, one should write all the questions. In my first attempt, while I was selected in Danix, I was not able to complete the entire paper in GS1 and GS3. I had left certain questions and it reflected in my marks. I had got 91 in each of them. So one should write all the questions, even if one is writing not that good questions, not that good answers, but one should try to complete the paper, because even if you write a normal answer, you may get 3 marks or 3.5 marks, versus if you write a very good answer, you may get 5 or 6 marks in a 10-marker question. So one should complete the paper, one should write all the 20 questions in the 3 hours. The second thing is that one would not be able to write good questions or very good questions in all the 20 questions. So there should be at least, like say, 10 questions where you are able to write very good answers, and you are able, so that you are able to get above margin, above average marks in those questions. So for instance, if you write say 5 10 marker questions very good, you may get 5.5 or 6 marks, and if you write 5 15 markers very good, you may end up getting 7.5 marks. So these 10 questions would help you get a leverage, and the other 10 questions, if you are writing good or even average, you will be able to have a fairly decent score. So writing good answers, not every answer can be good or above good, but writing at least 10 very good answers and completing the paper in time helped me. So I think it will help, it can help you also. Any other question anyone has?
How to select the option and how much time we need to study in a single day? How much time we need to spend for study during the class times? Or what was your optional subject?
My optional subject was sociology, and see, how much hour one needs to study is a very different thing for everyone. This is similar to how much food one needs to eat. वो तो जितनी भूख लगेगी उतना खाएगा कोई. तो ये तो to each his own. People study as per their convenience. कभी किसी को chill करना होता है, party करनी होती है. They need to spend some time with family, friends, etc. So they need to take that time off also. So hours of study is a very personal thing that people gradually understand. Once people understand themselves, they gradually understand the answer to this question also, that I need to study this thing, and they do that. Now the second question with respect to optional, I think optional plays a very crucial role in your selection. So optional should be selected basis your interest. Any optional where you feel like studying for quite a long time and you are interested in that optional, you should choose that optional, because getting good marks in optional is very important. Rather, I had shared this thing. In my first attempt, I had got 213 in my optional. This time I have got 292. So around 79. My optional was sociology. So optional plays, so herein I was selected in Danix, and herein you know. So you can see what optional does to an individual. So choosing an optional becomes very critical, and you should choose an optional as per your understanding of that subject, your interest in that subject. So yeah, any other question? Yes.
How were your experience of that time of the interview?
So can you
How were your experience interview times?
interview?
Yes.
Okay, yeah. So I have given 2 interviews. So these are my interview marks of the 2 attempts. So my interview marks have been fairly good. The honorable board was very cordial. They want to understand, they want to test the suitability of the candidate for the civil services, and henceforth they ask questions from your DAF, detailed application form, your experiences, your graduation, post-graduation, your work, etc., your hobbies, etc. So they need to understand, they want to test your suitability, your analytical approach, your coherence of thought, and if you are neutral, unbiased. So my experience, as your question was, my experience was fairly good, and the honorable board was very cordial. So it is more of a conversation that you have with the honorable board, and it is through that conversation only that the board tests your suitability for the civil services. So my experience was fairly good. Any other question? Yes, please.
Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon.
Sir, as we know, sir, main syllabus is very, very wide, and there are materials which are very, very wide also. Many quantities available. And sir, we have the class notes, we have supplement from management also, we have refreshers, we have current affairs, we have newspapers, and we have test series also. So, sir, in 1 year, how to complete that much of syllabus in limited amount of time?
This is a very relevant question. Thank you. Firstly, you should have blinders. You should not waste your time on resources or on things which are not that much relevant. So a horse has certain blinders. You should also have blinders. Your destination is Civil Services Examination. You should have a criteria for filtering. These are your filters. There's so much of information here. As you were saying, refreshers are there, so much of material is available here. Only that material should come here which is relevant for your exam. So relevance is very important. And how do you understand relevance? How would you understand relevance? Any ideas? Anyone? So relevance you would get to know from PYQs, from your syllabus, UPSC syllabus. So the filter that you should use should be your PYQs and your syllabus. Whatever material is not in conformity or consistency with your PYQs, previous year questions, and with the syllabus, that material should be discarded. So you should study very wisely, in a very focused manner, and here the guiding light would be the syllabus and PYQs. If there is any material from which no question has come in the past 7 years, 10 years, and it is not that much relevant, then you should not waste your time on that material. You should be very wise in spending your time, and you should plan also your time in such a way that the time that you waste on materials which lie here, so only this material is relevant, this material is useless. So the time that you devote here should be very less. I know it will take you some time to understand the relevance and to use the filters. So this time should be hardly 10% of your overall time, and this would gradually reduce to 5% as you start understanding the relevance. And this also is an iterative process. So you study material, you develop some insights which you'll do on your own. Then using these insights you will understand the relevance, and this would improve your efficiency, and you will be able to apply those filters when you study. So this is an iterative process, and this will take you some time. So use PYQs and use syllabus to find out if what you are studying is relevant or if what you are studying is not relevant. So I think I have answered your question. Any other question? All right. So I think
Students at the back, you want to ask something? Anyone?
they want to break out for lunch.
Now that was really an inspiring and value addition. Hope you all have got the answers to your questions. If anyone wants to ask something, please. Again, please.
Sir, what is your strategy of the UPSC preparations? Sir, how can the manage of the times? How can manage of spent of times? Sir, how is your experience? How is your opinion that there are seat of many of UPSC aspirants and many of UPSC candidates? Sir, you give me any aspirations, then expires and then achieve our goals.
So the strategy is that one should do smart work. One should study very smartly, as we just discussed. One should study resources which are more relevant, useful. The second aspect is that one should be very consistent with studies. It should not be that you studied for some time today, then you're partying tomorrow, and then you're doing something, you're watching a movie the day after. So you should have discipline and you should have consistency in your studies. And the third thing is that there should be optimism and you should believe in yourself. You should believe that you will be able to crack the examination and you should not get disheartened in this arduous journey. This journey is long. It takes a lot of time, efforts. So one should have that optimism, that faith, belief in themselves, and should continue ahead in their efforts. So I think these three things would help you prepare better for the examination. Hope I've answered your question.
Now that was the last question. Now I will request Mr. Brishpal Singh Charan to come and speak a few lines and inspire our students.
बच्चों नमस्कार। इंडिया का सबसे अच्छा और सबसे सुपर एग्जाम के लिए आप तैयारी कर रहे हो, आप सबको बहुत बहुत शुभकामनाएं। देखो किसी भी कंपटीशन की प्रिपरेशन होती है वो अपने आप एक तपस्या होती है। आपको पता है लैक्स ऑफ पीपल आर प्रिपेयरिंग फॉर दिस एग्जाम। आपको ये भी पता होना चाहिए कि उन लैक्स में आप सबसे सुप्रीम इंटेलिजेंट तो हो नहीं, सब बराबर है, ऑलमोस्ट बच्चे। आपको प्रिपरेशन के टाइम में क्या करना है कि भीड़ है ना, भीड़ उससे कुछ अलग करना है। जैसे मैं मेरा एग्जांपल देता हूँ, मैं रात को 2:30 बजे उठता था और 3 बजे लाइब्रेरी में पढ़ाई शुरू करता था। सुबह लगभग 8 बजे तक, 7:30 8 बजे तक भीड़ आती थी, क्राउड राजस्थान यूनिवर्सिटी में, जो मतलब अथाह युवा आते थे। उनके साथ बैठ के मैं शाम को मतलब खाना वाना सब करता था, बाहर भी जाता था, जूस भी पीता था। 6 बजे अपने हॉस्टल में जाके 7 बजे तक सो जाता था। ये सुबह जो 3 बजे से लेकर के वो गया था मैं लाइब्रेरी, सुबह 8 बजे तक, ये 4-5 घंटे की लीड है जो आप कॉमन लोगों से ज्यादा कर रहे हो। आप जो पढ़ोगे, अगर आप यहाँ रह के 4-5 घंटे पढ़ाई कर रहे हो, तो ये तो एक मजिस्ट्रेट या एक तहसीलदार भी कर रहा है जो अपनी जॉब कर रहा है साथ में, और वो भी 4-5 घंटे पढ़ रहा है। तो मेरा ये कहना है कि यहाँ पर आप जब तक हो, मतलब जितने टाइम तक रहो, जम के पढ़ाई करो, जम के। मतलब आपको ये सोशल मीडिया वगैरह व्हाट्सएप पे आप 1 साल बाद भी खोलोगे तो ऐसा कोई मैसेज नहीं होगा कि आपके 2 लाख ड्यू थे आपने लिए नहीं, वो ऐसा ही पड़ा है। आप जब बन जाओगे, तो मैं जब प्रिपरेशन करता था तो एप्पल 3 चलता था, आज 14 चल रहा है। टेक्नोलॉजी तो आपको बेटर ही मिलेगी। आप जब सर्विस में आओगे तो आपकी लाइफ चेंज हो जाएगी। ये सोशल मीडिया कहीं नहीं जाना है, तो आप जम के पढ़ाई करो। बहुत अच्छा माहौल है और बहुत बहुत शुभकामनाएं। थैंक यू।